David was promised the kingdom. He had a home prepared for him. But David was displaced. David was homeless. He had no place. He lived in caves. He lived in the streets. And some of you here today
Take one at a time.
have been displaced. And you're living in the caves. And though Saul was not able to put his armor on David that day of the battle with Goliath, David ran with another armor of Saul upon him. He ran with the words, the threatening words, the fearful words, the cold words as an armor around him. Many of the Psalms, you can hear it. He looked to Saul as a father. Some of you have looked at people as your fathers. And his father betrayed him. Even after the first attempt on his life, David still went back. And some of you have went back. And now some of you are in the caves. And you're cold. You've lost your joy. But you know what? It said that David encouraged himself. And I think what he did was he started first by just taking off the cloak. And he began to still feel cold. But then he said, probably to himself, I remember when God told me to go fight a bear. And he began to warm up a little bit. And then he said, I remember God gave me the strength to defeat Goliath. And he warmed up a little more. You know what? You may have not slain a bear or a giant, but God has a new armor for you, a new warmth. I was talking to a few people. I was talking to Dawn, and she said, we form something when we speak, and that's why I just felt we form something when we speak, and we remind God of His promises. So no matter where you are, begin to warm yourself up with the promises of God. And if you have no promises, which I know all of you do, read other people's promises. See, if God did it, I mean, you got to think Charles Parham prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. You have William Nash, who received no praise in this life, but he would go ahead of Finney, and he would pray and pray and pray, and then Finney would go in. And some of you, you feel as if, where is my reward? Your reward is in doing what you just reward in doing what you said. And as you read these other stories, and you're like, well, they're not about me. Well, I'll bet you, if you search long enough, you're going to find people who are just like you, who have gone through the exact same things, and they were still victorious. And as you read those things, you're going to put on more and more warmth. And you're going to be able to feel the Father's warmth. So I just encourage all of you today, as we take communion, to cast off the armor of Saul, that coldness, and to put on the remembrance of what the Lord's going to do for you, and the remembrance of what God has done for others, and what God's going to do in the future.
That's telling the old stories. That is telling the old stories. That's telling the old stories, just like Julie Meyer in her dream, those intercessors whose hearts were failing. It took the old stories to go back to be told, for the hearts of intercession to start beating again, for the hope of the kingdom. And I'm telling you, go back and look at the things that have happened in your life. I think it's important that we go back and we have a book of remembrance of, God, I remember when you met me here. Oh God, I remember when you touched me here. Lord, I remember when you healed me there. Lord, I remember when you spoke this promise to me. And we need to go back to that place. And we need to revisit the words. We need to go back and say, Lord, I know that you are going to do these things. You've done them before. Lord, do it again, like we sang this morning. Again, Lord, do it again. Restore and boast your glory, oh God, in my life again. Do it again. You are God that does it again and again and again and again. He's not finished. And so don't let hope deferred enter in. Go back and remember the old stories.